All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Lindsey Vernon. I'm a school counselor at Roberto Clemente Middle School and team leader, and my pronouns are she, her. And I am joined a little bit later by my amazing colleague, Miss Holly Hill, who's the principal at Wayside Elementary School. And we are here to talk about LGBTQ plus youth mental health. This is a pretty quick overview, and we're kind of calling it a call to action. And really, this is for anybody who is a part of the MCPS community, whether it's family, community members, students themselves, staff, anybody's welcome. We really just wanted to start by asking, how are you? But I'll go ahead and dig a little deeper and ask, how are you really? We thought it fitting, since we are here for Mental Health Awareness Week, that we check in on you, whether you're staff, parents, students. We think it's important now more than ever to check in on the people in our lives. And by being here with us for this presentation, you're a part of our lives right now. And just take the time to create a safe space to think or discuss how we're feeling. I've heard from some of my colleagues this question asked different ways. For example, how full is your battery today? What's been on your mind? Or is there any type of support that you could use today? And unfortunately, since this is a recording, you're not here with us live. I would love to ask, but maybe a suggestion would be, once you are done today with watching all these amazing presentations, you check in on the people in your lives. So today we're going to do a few things. We're going to introduce ourselves and give some background information as to why we wanted to talk about this important topic today. Then we'll go ahead and do a review of some of the research and literature out there on LGBTQ plus youth mental health. So we'll use data from GLSEN, NAMI, the Human Rights Campaign, and the TREVOR Project. Then we'll talk about the virtual world and some considerations for those that have moved from virtual to in-person, or some suggestions for when that time may come. And then we'll talk about some next steps, some resources and considerations moving forward. Like I said, I'm a school counselor at Roberto Clemente Middle School. This is my 6th year as a school counselor. I think it's the best job in the whole world. And one of my favorite parts of my job is that I get to be the sponsor for our school's GSA, which stands for Gender and Sexuality Alliance. At Clemente, we call it the Rainbow Hawks. And I will use some of that experience to tie into what we're talking about today. And since we're here talking about the mental health of our LGBTQ plus youth, I just wanted to refer back to this quote. I always have it up in my office. It's very simple, but being a member of the LGBTQ plus community myself, and now being a school counselor and my role working with students and community members, I feel like it's important to explain that I'm here because I'm putting myself back into the shoes that I wore when I was younger. And I try to think about how I felt and what supports or affirmations or representation I needed to see, or that I wished I had. And so Holly and I wanted to just talk about our philosophy and kind of where we're operating from as we're talking about LGBTQ plus youth mental health. We feel like every student should feel valued and celebrated and safe and respected, and that they should see themselves in their school or school activities or the curriculum. And then also they should have a trusted adult. And we felt like, again, that really ties directly to what we're talking about today, LGBTQ plus youth mental health. And we just wanted to take some time to kind of provide an overview of some of the data out there regarding the mental health of our LGBTQ plus students. And for this particular portion, we're going to pull from the TREVOR Project, NAMI, GLSEN, and the HRC. It's also really important to note that historically, LGBTQ plus youth identities have not really been commonly included in larger scale studies of mental health. So we're excited that the representation is happening more in present day studies, but it's also important to remember that this representation within the research is relatively new. And so here we can see some data from NAMI. They share some interesting statistics. For example, compared to their peers, LGBTQ plus youth are at a heightened risk for PTSD, are 2 times more likely to feel sadness or hopelessness, and experience homelessness and mental health conditions and suicidality more. The TREVOR Project shares data from their national survey. In 2020, they had 40,000 LGBTQ plus youth voices. However, the 2021 data just came out recently. And so you'll see that we tried to incorporate some of that new data into our information we're sharing with you today. There's a lot of information on the slide, but it's very, very important. And where you see a slash, the first number is from the 2020 data, and the second number is from the 2021 survey data, okay? So as you can see, their survey highlights the mental health of LGBTQ plus youth in lots of different ways. They highlight that 75% of LGBTQ plus youth report being discriminated against based on their sexual orientation or gender identity. 48% reported engaging in self-harm within the past year. You can also see how the percentage of people reporting symptoms of generalized anxiety disorder in the past 2 weeks increased 12% from 2020 to 2021. And as the TREVOR Project mentions when they shared this data, it really helps to illustrate the serious challenges that LGBTQ plus youth face, and it serves as an urgent call to action for all of us. The TREVOR Project also shared some survey highlights regarding supports for LGBTQ plus youth. So for example, those who have support systems in place or have access to affirming spaces report significantly lower levels of attempting suicide. And we can also see here through this data that representation matters. Notes celebrities have a positive impact. And so GLSEN also does some research on school climate. And so they talk directly with students, and this study is conducted every 2 years. Some key findings from their research indicates that nearly 78% of students reported avoiding school functions and extracurricular activities. 86% experienced harassment or assault. And as you can see, this can have an impact on student attendance, their self-esteem, and more. That all being said, schools with a GSA, compared to students who do not have a GSA at their school, were less likely to hear the word gay used in a negative way, or less likely to hear homophobic remarks or negative remarks about their gender expression. This also led to increased feelings of belongings and lower levels of victimization. Also affected their attendance. They were less likely to miss school. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Holly Hill to talk a little bit about intersectionality.
Thanks, Ms. Vernon. I'd like to talk about a topic that impacts the mental health of LGBTQ plus youth in the community a bit more. Intersectionality. I want to shine a light on intersectionality because for many of you that identify as LGBTQ plus, or for some of your students who are part of the LGBTQ plus community, you may find yourself dealing with intersectionality. This might make these particular youth susceptible to mental health concerns, where they face inadequate access to culturally appropriate care. Now, intersectionality is a complex, cumulative way in which the effects of multiple forms of discrimination, such as racism or sexism or classism, combine, overlap, or intersect, especially in the experiences of marginalized individuals or groups. Intersectionality can be seen as a lens through which you can see where power comes from and collides, where it interlocks and intersects. It's not simply that there's a race problem here, or a gender problem here, or a class problem, or a LGBTQ plus problem here. Many times that framework erases what happens to people who are subject to all of these things at one time. Black LGBTQ youth are just as likely to experience suicidal ideology as any other LGBTQ youth. With over a third seriously considering suicide in the past year and a half, and 1 in 5 reporting an attempt, the statistics are the same across the board. However, for Black LGBTQ youth who are accessing professional care, it shows that it happens at a much lower rate, suggesting that existing models of care have failed at providing Black LGBTQ youth access to appropriate and acceptable mental health services. Most suicide prevention programs for youth often take a one-size-fits-all approach and lack the cultural grounding necessary for effective prevention for Black LGBTQ youth. It's important for organizations that serve these youth that are Black or African American with a dual lens of LGBTQ inclusion and anti-racism at the same time. These organizations must be the first to acknowledge that it isn't a one-size-fits-all and not the same thing works for everyone. For those that identify as Latinx LGBTQ, the coming out process can be even more complex to navigate. So remember, we're talking about intersectionality and different groups of people that are in different places. Often for Latinx youth that are also a part of the LGBTQ community, it requires a unique approach that can cross multiple languages, cultures, nationalities, religious identities, and family generations. Suicide prevention initiatives need to be inclusive of Latinx LGBTQ youth and be mindful of the unique findings that are particularly related to the impact of immigration fears for this group. For Latinx LGBTQ youth, concerns around their own families' potential detainment or deportation were related to significantly larger risk for attempting suicide, demonstrating that environments and policies strongly impact mental health. Individuals that support Latinx youth that are part of the LGBTQ community should be aware of the impact that immigration concerns and specific immigration policies can have on the mental health and well-being of these particular youth. Now, there are roughly over 12,000 identified LGBTQ teenagers across the nation. And some of those youth, just like you, are also Latinx. There are roughly over 12,000 identified LGBTQ plus teenagers across the nation. And some of those youth, just like you, are also Latinx or Hispanic. Take a look at these statistics. You may see yourself there or someone you know on the slide. And take a look at how many of them, because of their intersectionality, were teased because of their ethnicity in one group and their inclusion in another. Our reasons for discussing mental health today in this forum is knowing that students who feel safe and supported have a better educational experience and better social emotional outcomes. We know that being okay and feeling good impacts both your mental health and your ability to succeed in education. Part of having better social emotional outcomes are having protective factors that surround all of us. Protective factors are conditions or attributes in individuals, families, communities, or the larger society that help people deal more effectively with stressful events and help to eliminate risk in families and communities. At school, It might be a school-based club that recognizes inclusivity. In the realm of the family, it might be having a particular family member who first shows acceptance, which makes it more likely that others in the family are also accepting or even able to help educate others in the family around them. One important protective factor is the opportunity for visibility, to be who you are and to be included and accepted. I know that most of us are back in session or in person at school now, but there are some of us that remain virtual, and there are still many aspects of school that continue to be virtual. And so much of what we do and what happens around us is virtual. It's important for us to talk about what has happened during the last year and a half. And while we were all virtual and have moved some of that over to the in-person setting, how mental health of the LGBTQ community was impacted during that time. Take a look at these headlines and see how COVID-19 delivered some unique challenges to the LGBTQ community over the last year and a half, since we all went home in March of 2020. Whether virtual or in person, these are some of the challenges and how they presented in different areas. We've had an increased mental health need. Access to support has not been there as much. The home environment has been different for many students and how they feel comfortable and where they can share who they are with others. If you take a look at these statistics from the TREVOR Project National Survey, on the left consists of some of the data available during the time of COVID and what the mental health opportunities were. On the right are some of the things that the LGBTQ youth said brought them joy. We want you to remember that there's always some of this. And sometimes you have to look around for it a little bit harder, but it is there. Take a look at those, see how you can incorporate those. Reach out to others, reach to others, and make those things happen. Some of them are very easy. The next two slides will give us additional considerations and ideas, not only for members of the community, but for staff working with LGBTQ+ youth, parents, and other allies. All of the suggestions have the ability to improve the social emotional well-being, mental health, and educational experiences of LGBTQ+ youth. Remember that you are not alone. There are ways and people to help you develop connections and to help you continue to be who you are. For staff, there is training to assist you in building your capacity and knowing that something as simple as maintaining confidentiality and respecting a student's wishes if they do not want others to know about or do not want to openly discuss their gender identity are actions that go a long way for establishing relationships. For those of you that are students, whether you're a part of the community or not, there are also opportunities for you to help and to support by educating others and simply being inclusive. Taking advantage of teachable moments and making and creating safe places at schools are just a few ways that we can begin to do this work and ensure that when someone asks, how are you doing? We actually feel safe, good, and are honest about saying how we really are. Thank you.
Hi again, everybody. By this point, we've discussed a lot to better inform our understanding of LGBTQ+ youth mental health. Whoever you are, I hope this really quick overview serves as a call to action for you. If you're a fellow student in the county, I encourage you to reach out to your school's GSA, advocate for LGBTQ+ mental health, learn more, educate yourself, and use your powerful voice. If you're a parent, guardian, community member, staff member, I hope you found this information helpful. We anticipate that some of our audience may be at all different stages in understanding. So whether this was a review for you or you learned something new, I hope it serves as motivation to continue all of our important work as advocates and support systems for our youth. I'm going to close out this presentation with a few resources that you may want to keep in mind. So these are crisis support resources. We have here the TREVOR Project. We also have the Crisis Text Line and the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. It's important to know and remember that there is always someone there. So you will see that all of these different resources offer 24/7 support. Here's some awesome organizations. GLSEN, I'll start with. I actually used GLSEN in conjunction with my GSA last year for planning for our Day of Silence, which was awesome. We did that virtually and in person. It was really cool. The GLSEN organization has a bunch of great programs and resources and trainings. And of course, as we shared today, they also do a bunch of really useful research. SMILE offers safe community spaces, support, empowerment for youth that are members of the LGBTQ+ community. And right here in Montgomery County, MoCo Pride continues to do amazing things. I enjoy following them on social media and seeing what they're up to. So as we move forward, here are just some practical ways to support LGBTQ+ youth's mental health. Reach out, ask how they're doing, really, like we did earlier. Create and uphold those safe spaces. Understand the unique challenges of LGBTQ+ youth. Ask and use people's pronouns. Use gender inclusive language, visibly display signs of support in your classrooms, in your homes, in your neighborhoods, and continue to educate yourself and learn more. It's also important for us to just know and keep in mind the warning signs for suicide, such as major changes in behavior. At Clemente, we teach the ACT strategy: acknowledge, care, and tell a trusted adult. We also should keep in mind that we can practice active listening by giving other people our full attention and listening for the sole purpose of listening, not to try to problem solve immediately or interrupting. We can also be allies and reach out to others to offer our support and acceptance. As we wrap up the first few weeks back to in-person instruction for many of us, it's important to be mindful that we have all spent the last year plus in a virtual world, including our LGBTQ+ youth and the unique challenges they had faced that we reviewed earlier. As we continue with in-person instruction or continue with virtual instruction for some of us, please consider the following. If you're an adult that supports LGBTQ+ youth, you may want to evaluate what your safe spaces look like and take the time to dedicate to checking in with your students. Having open and honest discussions about any feelings, anxieties, or worries can be very helpful in anticipating any tough feelings that may arise. Additionally, you may want to practice reframing thoughts. For example, reframing something like, oh, I won't know anyone, to, even if it's a little uncomfortable at first, you'll have more opportunities to meet new people and make new friends, and I will be there for you every step of the way. Modeling, using coping skills, and having predictable routines may also be something to consider. We are so honored to be a part of Mental Health Awareness Week by talking about this important topic. Please do not hesitate to reach out to either of us at any time with any questions. We thank you so much for listening. We hope you found it helpful and enjoy the rest of your day.